And I'd like to welcome you to Commissioner Sharon Barnes Sutton's annual Go Red for Women celebration. Please join me in welcoming and thanking the other hosts for this afternoon. That would be DeKalb County CEO Burl Ellis, the Board of Health District Director Dr. Sandra Ford, and Human Resources Director Benita Ransom. As we begin, I am honored to introduce Commissioner Sharon Barnes Sutton, Deputy Presiding Officer of our DeKalb County Board of Commissioners, who will bring our official welcome. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Sharon Barnes Sutton.
I just want to say welcome and thank you for coming to support our efforts to make the Go Red campaign a big, big success. This is a way that we bring awareness to the plight of women with heart disease. I'm going to read to you some facts and just talk about what we're here to do today. So thank you for coming, and all of you look so beautiful out there in your red. If I could sing, I'd sing that song about put on your red dress. Well, you certainly put it on today. You're going to have fun and a fabulous afternoon, along with receiving some valuable facts on this devastating disease that is impacting our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters, our daughters, our friends, people that you know every day. You'll receive some great tips that will help you save lives. Heart disease causes 1 in 3 women's death each year, killing approximately 1 woman every minute. The American Heart Association has made significant progress to fight to save the lives of women across America. Through the Go Red for Women movement, more women are being educated and recognizing the warning signs and taking action immediately for medical attention. I want to thank the Human Resources Department, the CEO's office, and Dr. Sandra Ford for their assistance in making this event happen. Please enjoy this afternoon, and I want to express my special thanks for our runway walkers on the red carpet. Could you give them a hand? With the beautiful, fantastic models, please stand up. Aren't they fabulous? We can give them a bigger hand than that, can't we? Thank you so much. Let's have a great time this afternoon.
Let's give her another round of applause. Now, for the rest of you who are speaking, Commissioner Sutton has shown you how to do it. You must model when you go down, and so we know who's next. Our next guest is DeKalb County CEO Burl Ellis's Chief of Staff. That's Mr. Hakeem Hilliard. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Hilliard.
Hit the runway.
All right, I'm supposed to walk, okay. I just wanted to quickly bring greetings to you all this afternoon on behalf of CEO Ellis. This is a very exciting occasion. We're very, very grateful to Commissioner Barnes Sutton for leading the charge on this important effort, and we're excited to be a part of it. I just want to say a quick moment. I consider myself a student of history, and there's a book by a guy named I.E. Armand that talks about, it's called 2000 Seasons. It says, he talks about how he gets involved on behalf of other people, and why do people not just concern themselves with themselves and worry about other causes? And the quote that I love from the book, it says, well, why would you do this? And he says, there is no self to save without the rest of us. And that's what I think about when I think about Commissioner Barnes Sutton. She was involved in something very serious. She took care of herself, and then she didn't stop there. She said it's very, very important to make sure that everybody pays attention to this very, very important issue, and this is the outcome of this effort. So we are very grateful to be a part of it. There's a difference between politicians and public servants, I think, if everybody knows that. And this is really an example of public service. You're using the pulpit that you have as a public servant to further an important cause for the community. So I'm excited to be here on behalf of the CEO. This is one of the fun things about this job. I get up and say wonderful things about things that I care a lot about. So thank you very much. And let's thank Commissioner Barnes Sutton again. And congratulate me for my red tie. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right.
Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. Our next guest is one of our co-hosts for this Lunch and Learn event, and that's Ms. Benita C. Ransom, our Human Resources and Merit System Director. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Ransom.
I'm afraid of heights. On behalf of the HR team, I want to say, Commissioner Barnes Sutton, thank you very much for allowing HR to participate in this heart health initiative. As most of you know, cardiovascular disease claims the lives of more women than breast cancer. You know, we talk about breast cancer, which is very important, but cardiovascular disease is even more serious. And so I want to just say that we need to pay attention. We need to make sure we educate ourselves. And I just want to just share just a personal story. December 31st of 2009, my mother had a massive heart attack. She was one person who went from a size 12 to a size 6. She used to walk 10 miles a day, 5 miles in the morning before going to work and 5 miles in the afternoon. And she had given up smoking. And even after doing all of that, December 31st, in fact, it was New Year's Eve, while I was at church and my sister was out socializing, she was at home here in DeKalb County visiting from Florida. She started belching. You know, she had all this gas, and, you know, it just wouldn't go away. And her friend called my sister and said, you know, something's wrong with your mom. You need to come. You know, I've not seen her like that. And so my sister immediately called the ambulance instead of just rushing to check on her. The ambulance came, took her to DeKalb Medical, and they did the EKG, and they discovered that she was having a heart attack, or had a heart attack. And at the time, DeKalb Medical was not able to do a heart catheterization, so they told the ambulance to take her to Emory. And while at Emory, they started the whole process, and she flatlined. You know how you see on TV that little buzzer go, the little sound comes on and it's a straight line. She literally flatlined, and they had to resuscitate her. And they discovered that she had 3 blocked arteries, and she had open heart surgery, and she stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. But I must say that she is doing fine now. She's doing great. But I'm sharing this story because even though she had done all of those things, she still suffered a heart attack. So it is very important for us to understand the symptoms and to be ready to take action. It's also important to change our lifestyle. You know, we got to make sure that we eat healthy, that we exercise, that we stop smoking. And last but not least, we got to have a plan in the event that you do have a heart attack. You got to know what you're going to do. And so that's my story. And I must say that I am thankful that she did take action and knew what to do. Thank you.
Today has been planned as a fun and entertaining event, and we most definitely have a great time in store for you. But first, we must incorporate an education element because heart disease among women must be addressed. As Commissioner Sutton shared, knowledge and information save lives. And we were due to have a special guest speaker, and that is Dr. Ejimo E.C. Adinzo. Is she here? All right. And I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly. Dr. E.C. Adinzo is Assistant Professor of Medicine at Emory University School of Medicine. She has a joint degree in medicine and in public health. She is board certified in internal medicine, cardiovascular diseases, nuclear cardiology, and cardiovascular computed tomography. Am I right, Dr. Ford? Thank you. She's a member of several professional organizations, including the American Society of Preventive Cardiology, the Association of Black Cardiologists, the American College of Cardiology, and the American Public Health Association. Please join me in welcoming, are we ready? Dr. E.C. Adinzo.
I am Dr. E.C. Adinzo. Thank you all for coming here. This is a wonderful program that the American Heart Association is doing with the DeKalb County. We know that women's heart disease is something that certainly we need to focus a little bit more on as far as notifying ourselves what the risks are and working on decreasing the mortality and morbidity from heart disease. So my talk is going to focus on highlighting what some of those symptoms are for heart disease, what the risk factors for heart disease are, and what some action items you can do to decrease your risk. And I should say, at least to start out, that the Get to Go program focuses on hypertension. And once this event is over, in the back of the room out there, we're going to be checking blood pressures so that everybody can know where they stand as far as your risk for heart disease, okay? All right, I think we're ready to go. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So heart disease is not just a man's disease. I know that when we all think of heart disease, some of the pictures and advertisements that you see on TV are men clutching their chests, bending over in pain, right? But we know that statistics have proven that, in fact, women are affected by heart disease. It is a leading cause of death for women in the United States, and not just the United States, but in fact, worldwide. In addition, more than 1 in 3 female adults has some form of cardiovascular disease. So whether it's a heart attack, a stroke, or peripheral arterial disease, someone you know, maybe you yourself, someone in your church group or at work, has been affected by heart disease. Some even more frightening statistics: 1 million heart attacks occur every single year in the United States. 700,000 strokes every single year in the United States. So we've got to figure out what we need to do in order to decrease these numbers. Research has also shown that there are racial differences when it comes to the people who are affected by heart disease, and that unfortunately African American women are affected more by heart disease, and certainly more African Americans die every year from heart disease. This slide actually highlights exactly what I just said, in that more women die from heart disease compared to men. The bars on the left are all male, the ones on the right are female. Look at those numbers. 400,000 women died from heart disease, especially in 2007. How do we know that this is a major cause of death? When you think about cancer, everybody knows about breast cancer from all the advertisements, right, and all the publicity. Unfortunately, heart disease claims more lives than cancer, lung disease, and diabetes combined. Next slide. So what are some of the symptoms for heart disease? If you know that you want to at least decrease your risk, you should know what you should be watching out for. Well, firstly, chest pain. Chest pain is the most common symptom for heart disease, both in men and in women. Shortness of breath is another very common symptom, as is weakness. I actually had a patient who came to see me. She was brought by her daughter, who she's about 60 or 70 years old, but she's pretty active. And all of a sudden, she couldn't even make her bed without feeling tired. So not the norm for her. And sure enough, I sent her for a stress test, and she had a significant blockage. She never had any chest pain, so that was her symptom. Profuse sweating also can be a symptom for heart disease. And in women, we have what we consider sort of atypical symptoms, so not the norm, not the regular chest pain. Some women, their only symptom may be sort of indigestion, jaw pain, arm pain, neck pain, or back pain. I happened to be on call last night, and I got a call from the emergency room about a woman who was in her 50s. She had hypertension. She didn't have any chest pain, but she had jaw pain, neck going into her arm. And sure enough, she was having a heart attack. So it's important to notice not just the typical symptoms, but be aware of the other ways that women can present with heart disease. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Why is this important? Because unfortunately, if we don't know the symptoms, both as patients or as clinicians, we risk not getting to the hospital in time. And the motto in cardiovascular disease is that time is muscle. The sooner you get to the hospital, the sooner we can do something to prevent irreversible damage to the heart. One thing I have to put out there, because I guess I don't think of it often because you don't think people do this, but they do, is if you have any of those symptoms, call 911. Don't drive yourself to the hospital, because people can die on the way to the hospital. I had a patient who did exactly that. Thankfully, she survived, but she drove herself to the hospital. So what are the risk factors? You know what some of the symptoms are? What do you need to be aware of as far as you yourself, whether or not you're at risk for heart disease? Well, certainly hypertension, which many of you already know is a risk factor for heart disease. Abnormal cholesterol levels, so we're low of the good cholesterol, the HDL. Smoking is a risk factor for heart disease, and so is age. We know that both in men and in women, hypertension increases as you get older, but so does cardiovascular disease. That doesn't mean that younger women are not being affected by heart disease, because I see it every day in my clinic. We've got women who are in their 30s or 40s who are having heart attacks and strokes. But it definitely is more of a disease of the elderly. Physical inactivity, we know that if you're not moving, if you're not exercising, that leads to obesity, hypertension, and diabetes, which correlate with heart disease. Family history. If there's somebody in your family who had a heart attack or even a stroke, so any form of cardiovascular disease, if there were a man younger than the age of 55 when they were affected, or a woman younger than the age of 65 when they were affected, that counts as one of your risk factors. So this is the importance of knowing your family history, right? Because it counts for you. Pregnancy is what we consider sort of a stress test for women, right? You go through so much when you're pregnant, but that's actually an important part of your clinical history. So when we talk to patients, one of the things we like to ask is, how was your pregnancy? If you had diabetes when you were pregnant, or if you had hypertension, or had to run off and have a cesarean section because you have what they call preeclampsia, that we know can increase your risk of having heart disease later in life. And so that needs to be part of the important conversation you have with your physician about where you stand as far as your risk for cardiovascular disease. You can go ahead to the next slide. So how do you know if you have hypertension? I have some patients who come to see me in clinic and I'll ask them, well, how's your blood pressure? They tell me it was fine, it was fine. Well, what was it? Well, 140 over 80. Well, that's not normal. I see some of you shaking your head, so you already know that, right? Yeah. A normal blood pressure is if your systolic, the top number is less than 120, or if the diastolic, the bottom number is less than 80. If your systolic blood pressure is between 120 to 139, or the bottom number is between 80 to 89, you're now considered prehypertensive. All is not lost in this phase, because this is when you can start changing your lifestyle and changing your diet so that you can prevent progressing to hypertension. If your systolic blood pressure is above 140 or your diastolic is above 90, you automatically have hypertension. So this is the time that, in addition to lifestyle changes, you need to probably be on some medications. You can go to the next slide. So what do we need to know about, I talked about racial differences as far as cardiovascular disease, but even the risk factors we see disproportionately affect African Americans. African Americans tend to develop hypertension at a younger age, and when we do develop hypertension, it tends to be more severe, requiring more medications to treat. So often, you'll see people requiring at least 2 medications just to stabilize their blood pressure. African Americans tend to also, unfortunately, develop more complications from having hypertension. So they're more likely to have the strokes, heart attacks, kidney failure from hypertension. So my take-home messages from this is that if you have hypertension, we need to be more aggressive about it. You need to make sure you're within normal, not knowing what normal is, and doing what you need to do within your daily life as far as exercising and watching your salt intake to make sure that is well controlled. You can go to the next slide. Despite the fact that we know what the goals are for hypertension, we know that unfortunately there are a lot of people who are not well controlled. Of the 34 million individuals who have hypertension, half of them are not well controlled. So how can you decrease your risk of heart disease or stroke if you're not controlled? 14 million people are not even aware that they have high blood pressure. 5 million are aware, but they're not being treated. So whether that's, we as physicians need to be more aggressive. I'm not sure where where we need to really focus a little bit more, but certainly they're not being treated. And of the people who are aware and being treated, those 16 million still are not at goal. So we still have a lot of work to do. Next slide. Smoking is a definite risk factor for heart disease. Specifically, it causes plaque buildup in the arteries, and it lowers that good cholesterol, which contribute to stroke, heart attack, and peripheral arterial disease. Next slide. So if you smoke, stop smoking, work with your physician to cut back. If you don't smoke, don't ever start. We talked about cholesterol being a risk factor for heart disease. Specifically, when they look at the lipid panel, there are a lot of things that we're looking at, but the things related to the hearts and strokes are the good and the bad cholesterol. So the HDL, I always tell people, remember the HDL is the good cholesterol because it starts with an H, you want that to be on the high side. The bad cholesterol starts with an L, so you want that to be lower side. For women, the goal HDL is above 50. For men, it's above 40. The best way to get your HDL up, besides diet, is exercise. That's a point I'm going to drive home over and over again. Bad cholesterol, the goal for everyone should be less than 160. Depending on what your risk factors are, your doctor may want that even lower, so like less than 100 or even closer to 70. Next slide. Obesity is a major issue in our population. I'm originally from New York, Philadelphia, so it wasn't until I moved to Atlanta that I got to enjoy your Southern diet. But I totally understand why the risks for cardiovascular disease and hypertension are much higher in the South. Is because of this diet and a lack of physical activity. If you look at that map on the right, you see that when you look at obesity, most of the individuals, the population that's obese is in the South. Next slide. Part of this is because we're just not moving. That's just the bottom line. When you look at United States adults, there was a poll that was taken and 60% of women don't engage in the recommended amount of physical activity. And I'll talk about what that recommendation is. But despite that, 1 in 4 women are not active at all. So that's a problem. But the reason why we're not active, you guys can probably think of most of this. We take care of everybody else but ourselves, right? We take care of work, we take care of the home, we take care of other family members, and we leave ourselves for last. So it's important to remember that we've got to get moving to decrease the deaths and decrease hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. Next slide. This is a cartoon I want to share with you about a physician who was talking to his patient about resistance training, exercising with weights. And she pretty much figures she's got it down pat. She's, I've been resisting exercise for 20 years and I'm doing just fine with that. Next slide. Why is it important to exercise? Well, besides the fact that it makes you feel good, we know that it has some definite medical benefits. Exercising 150 minutes per week has the same effect as almost 1 blood pressure medication. It decreases your systolic blood pressure by at least 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury. It promotes weight loss, which helps your diabetes and your hypertension again. So again, these are all connected. It reduces that bad cholesterol and increases that good cholesterol, which is protective for the heart. It decreases your risk of strokes and heart attacks. If you're a diabetic, it helps your blood sugar a little bit better. And more than anything, it helps with anxiety and stress. When I'm talking to my patients who are really busy, anxiety, stress, or just a lot going on at home or at work, I usually tell them, incorporate exercise not just for the health benefits, but for you. That's your time to give back to yourself, just to help manage your stress. And it helps, of course, with bones and joints. Next slide. What does the American Heart Association recommend as far as women and exercise? Like I said, 150 minutes per week of moderate level of activity, 75 minutes per week of vigorous activity. Usually this calculates about 30 minutes, 5 days a week is what everybody thinks about. But that doesn't mean if you can't do all 30 minutes at once that all is lost. You can actually divide that into multiple sessions. So I tell people if you can do 20 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes at night, that all adds up to the same health benefits. Combining moderate and vigorous activity is what's recommended, and I'll show you some examples of what that is. But more importantly, unlike that woman in the cartoon, we need to add at least 2 days of muscle strengthening exercises. Next slide. So these are some examples of moderate levels of activity. Water aerobics for 30 minutes counts, and this is what some of my elderly patients do because they have joint problems and can't use the treadmill or the elliptical machine. If you play tennis, doubles tennis, certainly is a moderate level of activity. Even housework, make everything you do count towards your activity. So scrubbing the floors, carrying out bags of trash up and down the driveway multiple times, all of that counts. The goal really is just to be active, get moving. Next slide. Vigorous activities, for those of you who love Zumba, I haven't really gotten into that, but that certainly counts as vigorous activity. If you play singles tennis, if you like swimming, so swimming laps for 30 minutes is a vigorous activity. And of course, step aerobics, jogging, and running as well. Next slide. So I guess in summary, what you may want to ask me at this point is, what do I do? I already know what the symptoms of heart disease are. I know what the risk factors are. I know where I stand. I know what I should be doing as far as exercise, but how do I put this all together? Next slide. A heart-healthy diet as recommended by the American Heart Association is eating fish at least twice a week. And it's not just any kind of fish, but you want that oily fish because that contains that omega-3 fatty acid that's protective for the heart. That'll increase your good cholesterol, that HDL. A diet that's high in fruit and vegetables, so whole grains, oatmeal. I have my patients add some flaxseed powder to that. Anything you can do to adhere to a healthy diet to get your numbers under control helps. Whole wheat bread, If you're hypertensive, or if you're an African American above the age of 50, we tend to be more sensitive to salt. And so the recommendations are that you limit your salt intake to 1,500 milligrams a day. Limiting your saturated fats to less than 7% of your total daily diet. When you look at this, really, you see the homework becomes you've got to read the labels. You just got to read the labels because that's how you know you're at goal. Your total cholesterol should be less than 150. If you're a woman, you limit your alcohol intake to just 1 glass per day. Men, their liver metabolizes alcohol differently, so they're allowed to have 2 glasses of alcohol a day. And remember, sometimes it's not just what you're eating, but it's how much you're eating. So portion control is the key. Incorporating exercise in your routine. The goal, like I said, is 150 minutes per day, but if you want to lose weight, the recommendation is 60 to 90 minutes of exercise per day. Decreasing your caloric intake by 500 calories per day results in 1 pound of weight loss per week. And for mothers, we know that breastfeeding has great benefits for our children, but remember it has benefits for us too. So breastfeeding will help you burn 500 calories a day. Next slide. So know your numbers, know what your blood pressure goal should be. If you are somebody who doesn't have heart disease or kidney disease, your goal blood pressure should be less than 140/90. Otherwise, it's less than 130/80. Remember that we want that good cholesterol to be high and that bad cholesterol to be low. If you smoke, stop smoking. If you don't smoke, don't ever start. Next slide. I've included here a website of some good resources that you can go to for references. Go Red for Women. The heart.org, and of course our website at Emory, because we have a Women's Cardiovascular Center where we focus on women with heart disease or women with risk factors for heart disease. Next slide. And I think that may be it. So I'm happy to take any questions, or I'll be outside in the back. Don't forget to get your blood pressure checked outside so you know where you stand.
I'm very pleased to welcome our co-host, Dr. Sandra Elizabeth Ford, who is the District Health Director. So please join me in saying hello and welcoming Dr. Ford.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I couldn't have timed that better. Benita Ransom's story about her mother was going to be my very first factoid, because I think that there's a belief that if you run, if you exercise, you're at no risk for heart disease. And 90% of women have at least one risk factor for heart disease. So it doesn't matter how healthy you are. Everybody's at some level of risk. It can be cholesterol. It could be whether you smoke, your diet. So everybody's at risk. So I'm glad that she mentioned that her mom was physically healthy but still had a heart attack. So we're all at risk, and that's why this is such a great event today. This reminds me of the Ebony Fashion Fair back in the day. Y'all know. And I was trying to be over 5'2" for most of my life to get to walk, but you know, that's why I gotta be smart, because I can't be tall sometimes, so work it out. Anyway, so without further ado, are we ready for our models?
Donica Kennan, and she is from the Clerk of Superior Court. Work. Thank you, Donica. I got it right that time. Kelly LaJoie. She is the Board of Commissioners, District 7, Commissioner Stan Watson's Chief of Staff, and I understand those are Prada shoes and a Chanel jacket. We'll check you out tomorrow and see what you have on.
Fun health fact, did you know that 24% of DeKalb County's residents are overweight or obese? But not this young lady coming forward.
Maxine Daniels. Is that the Director of Voter Registration and Elections? Dr. Phil, what happened to those warm-up suits we see at the department head meeting on Friday? There's a whole new person stepping out.
Stop the track, let me state the facts. Told you give me a minute and I'll be
Next
right
fun fact, did you know that 12% of DeKalb County's residents smoke every day? Speaking of smoking, check out our next photo.
And we have Denise Clark, Superior Court Clerk's Office. Looks like she stopped by one of the closets from the Academy Awards the other night. Working. Thank you, Denise.
Did you know that 22% of women had no doctor's visit last year in DeKalb County?
Jerry Ellis is modeling for you, and she's with the Board of Equalization. All right. Somebody's been practicing. Hit it one more time, Jerry. All right.
Our next model is from the purchasing department, so let's talk about money. Did you know that if you make an income over $35,000 a year, you're less likely to be obese in DeKalb County?
And that's Cynthia Farrell. Let's have her again. Hear it again for Cynthia Farrell.
Our next model asked me to share with you because I would never tell this without permission. She just celebrated her 73rd birthday.
And that's Kara Briscoe. And she is with, what is this? Say it for us.
I'm with Emily Subdivision in Stone Mountain.
I love this. These women are proud of their age. Our next model is going to be 75 in April.
And we see Daisy, is this Daisy Collins? All right.
All right, now, I'm not telling you how old I am because I'm not there yet. Did you know that 64% of women who died suddenly of coronary heart disease had no symptoms at all?
Let's hear it for Yolanda Bloom, who's with purchasing and contracting. All right. Of course, every day is a fashion show for Yolanda. When she steps in the building, beware.
Did you know that less than 50% of the people that live in DeKalb County exercise that recommended amount that our doctor told us about?
Come on, Mimi Hawkins with the Board of Commissioners. All right.
Did you know that heart disease is the leading cause of death for African American and Caucasian women in the United States?
Yara Anderson with the CEO's office. I don't know, model like that, you might not have a job this afternoon. And she sings too.
Part of why we have such an issue with cardiovascular disease in this county is because we don't move anymore. 83% increase in sedentary jobs since 1950.
That's Ashley Wright, and she's with the Board of Commissioners with Commissioner Sutton's office.
Well, this isn't Ashley's issue, but menopause and estrogen loss does offer you some protection against heart disease.
Priscilla, here she comes. She's with purchasing and contracting. Wrote a little description of what she's wearing, which is a Tahari dress suit. Is that Beyonce or Beyonce? Oh, she's changing. I guess you can look up or down with the hat, huh? What's a fashion show without a chapeau? Oh, Lord. Security, can you please escort Princella from the stage? One outfit, Princella. Security. You know, you just can't put the spotlight on some people.
Okay, I think I'm having a heart attack.
We do.
Oh, okay. It might be go red for women, but you also have a few men in front. Alright, now he's going back right on off the back of the stage. Alright, Hakeem Williams. Now for our presiding officer, Lee May. Alright. Good alpha brother, but we were red sometimes.
Well, did you know that good mental health also contributes to your heart health? And I hope you guys had a great time today.
Thank you so much. And although this is a Go Red for Women event, great information and facts for men as well. Being a heart attack survivor myself, as Dr. Ford said, you can jog every day, you can exercise every day, but you're still a candidate for a heart attack if you don't follow this valuable information. And now for our final thing, Dr. Ford, I've been asked that you hit the runway. You just have to hit the runway. Dr. Ford is going to hit the runway. Come on, you have to go. Now, as she hits the runway, I want you all to join me in wishing Dr. Ford a happy birthday. Didn't know I knew that, did you? Let's all say happy birthday to Dr. Ford. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dr. Ford. Happy birthday to you. I'll leave that alone. Thank you so much. We've had a great time. We appreciate you being here.